Hello everyone. So let's start our first class. The first class you can say of core contents or the actual subject, although we have already discussed about our course structure in our introductory session, right? So you already know what your subject is comprised of, right? We have three sections. We have everything that we are going to study is related to corporates only, right? Mainly that is how our subject is designed. We have this Companies Act, which is for corporates. We have some other corporate laws, as well as our topic for the day, that is corporate governance, is also related to corporates only. So basically, if we talk about this particular subject, it is more of corporate law, right? And that is what is written also, corporate laws and compliance. So you have almost all laws as corporate laws only, and certain compliances that they need to follow, right? So today, my dear, we are going to start with corporate governance. Corporate governance. Now, as the term suggests, corporate governance. Governance is all about governing something or controlling something or directing something. So corporate governance is a system by which a corporate is governed or is controlled. So far what I have said is that corporate governance is a system by which corporate is governed, is directed, or is controlled. That's exactly what I've said so far, right? But whenever we are starting an act, or we are starting any law, or we are starting simply any topic, what we need to address first of all is certain issues. What is this topic all about? Why do we need to study this topic? When did this topic came into force? Where is it applicable? And how are we going to do this? If there is something that needs to be done, how are we going to do this, right? So that is all the basic questions that need to be addressed first before we actually understand, right? So, what is corporate governance? How does it come from, or where does it come from? Meaning, what I told you, it is a system by which companies, or you can say corporates, are directed and controlled. If we just brush up our memory, we will realize something. Let's see. Promoters form the company. Who are promoters? Dhirubhai Ambani, the promoter of Reliance company. Maybe if I want to start a company, what will I do? I will do certain feasibility studies, like I will see, I want to set up a cotton manufacturing unit. So I have generated this idea of setting up a cotton manufacturing unit. The next thing that I'll see is what compliances do I need to obtain, how many people do I need, how much money do I need to invest. All these studies will be done by me, right? Will be done by me. All the documentation part will be done by me. Like I need to submit this particular document to ROC. I have to incorporate a company, so I need to file these money documents to ROC, and then only my company will be incorporated. So who am I? I am the promoter of the company who generates the idea of forming a company and undertakes all the necessary steps to incorporate the same, right? So that particular person is a promoter, right? What does promoter do? He forms a company. Promoter may or may not be the shareholder of the company. Promoter may or may not be the shareholder of the company, right? So that is optional. Now, after promoter forms a company, company issues shares. Company is going to issue shares to the shareholders of the company, who are actually, or who eventually become the owners of the company. See, if I have contributed capital to my proprietorship firm, I am the owner of this proprietorship firm. If there are 4 partners who have contributed money to the partnership firm, those 4 partners are the owners of partnership firm. Likewise, when a company is formed and some people contribute to the capital of the company, some people contribute or invest in that particular company, they will be known as owners of the company. right? So they contribute to the capital of the company, and in turn company is only going to a kind of giving them a receipt in the form of shares. The company issues shares to these shareholders who are owners of the company. Although they are the owners of the company because they have invested, they have contributed to the capital of the company, yet they do not direct the company. See, I have shares of Reliance. I have shares of Reliance, but can I direct that particular company? Can I decide, no, this particular business deal I don't like? I don't have the power to do so. I do not have the power to run Reliance. Although I am the owner of Reliance because I am the shareholder of Reliance, but I have just, you can say, measly holding 3-4 shares of certain company does not entitle or does not confer power to me, right? But what happens is, these shareholders or these owners, they do not direct the company, but they appoint somebody to manage or direct the company. Whom they appoint is the directors of the company. A promoter forms a company issues shares to the owners. These owners, known as shareholders, elect somebody to run their company, to manage their company. Just like we citizens of India, what do? We elect our representative. We all have paid taxes and filled government's treasury. So that government treasury is my money, is our money. But we do not decide where this treasury has to be spent. We elect some representative, some politician who is actually going to undertake that task on our behalf and run the whole country, right? Now, company is also a citizen. Company is a corporate citizen. Company is a corporate citizen directed or controlled by this elected people. Elected by whom? By the owners. So, shareholders or the owners elect directors who manage the company. They also elect auditors. They also elect auditors. Why do they elect auditors? What do they do? Auditors examine books. They give you a true and fair view that how your company is looking, it is exactly the same, right? All the internal controls are the same. The company is being managed in an efficient. So board of directors are responsible for managing the company, whereas auditors are responsible for examining the same and giving you a report. So owners have appointed them for a reason. I'll write here a word: to ensure corporate governance. Forget what I'm writing, okay? I'm just writing for explaining it a little later. Okay, so forget what I've written. We'll go with the flow. Now, we have directors. Directors become the people in charge of the company. So they are in charge of the company. They are going to run the company. They are going to you can say they are going to direct the company. They are going to somehow control the company, although some control is still in the hands of owners only, right? We can see, we are the citizens. When we have elected a representative to run the country, we also have the power to de-elect him, right? Like, he has to leave his chair if the common public decides so, right? So we still have certain power. Likewise, the shareholders also have that power. Okay, so they have some control also. Board of directors or the directors are in charge of the company. That is the ones who direct and control the company. Now, how are they going to control or direct the company? How are they going to regulate the functioning of company? Is by following certain principles or by following certain policies which are known as corporate governance. a system or policies by which companies are directed and controlled. But it is very different from your operational day-to-day activities, right? See, the company is managing a lot of operations also. There is some production going on, there is some sales going on, there is some marketing going on. Corporate governance does not mean how you have to produce your goods or how you have to sell your goods. It is not about that. Corporate governance is a policy or is a set of policies which tells how the company is going to function on the principles of accountability, transparency, and ethical practice. There are basically three pillars of corporate governance: FAT, fairness, accountability, and transparency, commonly and popularly known as. So corporate governance, my dear, is dependent upon these three basic principles. And we still did not understand anything. See, we do what our heart desires or what we like, right? A company has to do what the law likes or what the law desires, right? Company cannot do anything of its own because you have Companies Act or you have company law governing a company, right? Now what we are trying to establish here is there are directors who direct the company, but how do they direct the company is being told by a certain set of policies known as corporate governance. Company has a lot of roles to play. Company has a lot of operations, but company is also a corporate citizen and has to be a responsible one. So whenever I am talking about a corporate citizen, right? So if a company is a corporate citizen and has to be a responsible one, it needs to follow the policies based on three parameters, that is fairness, accountability, and transparency. That means company has to undertake all those steps which are given in corporate governance to ensure that it is functioning in a transparent manner. Ma'am, what is the need for the company to function in a transparent manner? Company is producing goods, company is selling those goods, and company is making profits. It is all that is required. Profit maximization is the ultimate key. That is what we know. All we need is profit, 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 right? We don't need anything else. Now, what happens if you keep on earning only profit? Or if you are not working in a transparent manner, there can be very harsh consequences. Okay, so it is important that you follow corporate governance, you follow good corporate governance. So far, all I have told you is that corporate governance is a set of policies, which company needs to follow or which directs the companies on the parameters of ethical practices. Okay? Now, if we come to the second part, why? Ma'am, why corporate governance is essential? I have designed a small video with the help of my very talented animation team, you can say. So we have designed a video for you. First of all, we are going to watch this particular video. Enjoy this video. Don't try to understand anything, because post video we will come back and we will discuss what it is all about and why is there a need of corporate governance. So it is going to enhance your concepts for sure. Okay, so let us first have a look at this particular AV.
Badmaash Company Limited is inviting people to subscribe to its shares. Come one, come all.
I want to invest my money. Me too.
Hey dude, I also want. So we have collected lot of money. Hey auditor. Hey, why do you look upset? Can we do something to hide this loss? We can definitely manipulate accounts.
See, this particular video is, you can say, basically inspired from an aspect of Satyam case. If you remember the Satyam case, Satyam fraud case, you can say, what happened or what is happening in this particular video example, the profit is being inflated, right? There is a company known as Badmash Company. Now, hearing the name, I think I wouldn't have invested in this particular company. But as you can see in the video, there are some innocent small investors unaware of their intention or of their fraudulent practices. They are willing to invest in this particular company and buy the shares of this company. What happens is the money is collected, the shares are issued, but eventually company suffers from heavy losses. Now, when company suffers from heavy losses, the company is worried about its image, plus the fact that if losses are being conveyed to the investors, what will happen is the investors would want to sell their shares, leading to a sharp decline in their share prices. And this particular company might be thrown out of the market. So, the concerned company goes to the auditor of the company and asks for a suggestion, but he himself has an idea of manipulating the accounts, right? So, auditor and the company decides that we are going to window dress the accounts, we are going to manipulate the accounts, and from loss, they actually turned the figure to a profit of 2 crores, which made the investors go round and round, right? So they danced with joy and they were very happy with the result and with the fact that they have invested in such a nice company that their money is going to multiply in number of times. But they are unaware of the actual scenario. So indirectly, what the company is doing is cheating its shareholders. And how the company is getting an opportunity to cheat the customers is because there is not corporate governance. There is no policy that is telling the company that you have to be fair, that you have to be transparent, that you have to be accountable for your actions towards the shareholders. Because there is no corporate governance that is directing the company to do so. There is no set of policy that is telling the company that you need to disclose this. Had there been a policy to disclose, or had there been a policy to work in a fair and transparent manner, had there been a policy that if the auditor is involved in such things, or if it is found out that the auditor is involved in such things, heavy penal action or maybe imprisonment will be attracted to the auditor would have been scared, right? So because of absence of such kind of policies, the company was able to cheat shareholders, leading to unethical practices because of lack of transparency. And that is why the suggestion being given in the video is to improve corporate governance, right? So if corporate governance is not there, it is going to be detrimental for the interest of investors at first place. But it is not just the investors. It is not just the investor. Company has to interact with a lot of other people also, known as stakeholders. So company has to interact with the government. Company is paying taxes to the government. If company does not function in transparent manner or hides its income or suppresses its income or inflates its income, whatever, the taxes will be affected, the government will be affected, the economy will be affected. Government is most concerned about public. Believe me or not, right? Government is most concerned about public. So if you are taking money from public, you have to be accountable towards every step that you take. You have to be fair. You have to be transparent. You have to be transparent. See, what happens usually is, supposedly, your mother gives you 1000 rupees to get some grocery. Okay, so she has given you a list of products that you need to buy, and she has also handed you a sum of 1000. Now what will happen is, if you come back and you give her the bill, that is, you give her the bill, the total of which is 980, and you tell her that 20 rupees I had a chocolate for myself, she will be more than happy and satisfied. But if you do not give her the bill and you tell her that all 1000 rupees has been spent, right? Now she will be apprehensive and keep on doubting you. I don't think this grocery is not worth 1000, although she buys it every day, but still she will not realize its worth, right? So she will keep on wondering that maybe, no, he does not have any bad habits. Where could he have spent that money? So she will continuously keep on doubting you. Why? Because of the absence of disclosure. So whenever you disclose things, whenever you work in a transparent manner, it helps to build confidence. It helps to build confidence. Had you told the investors that due to certain reasons we have suffered loss in this particular video example, and we achieve, or we are working on this particular thing and we achieve, we expect to achieve heavy profits in the upcoming year, the investors would have been slightly disappointed, but they would still be connected to you. But because of this cheating, when they come to know, they will immediately go away from you, right? So you will lose investors because you have lost their faith. Okay. So first of all, corporate governance is certain set of policies that directs a company to promote fairness, accountability, and transparency. So based on these three parameters, there are certain policies. Based on these three parameters, there are certain policies which corporates are required to follow. Why? Because there are a lot of benefits of following these policies or adopting these policies that we will discuss. Benefits of corporate governance. Okay. Benefits of corporate governance. Let's first switch to this particular topic. Okay. So this is exactly the notes that I have provided you. I hope you're all right. So if we come to the definition part, once again we will read it. Corporate governance refers to the set of policies that are created for directing a company on the principles of accountability, transparency, and ethical practices. As I told you, there are three pillars of good corporate governance. That means you have to be fair, you have to be accountable, and you have to work in a transparent manner. Now, when I am talking about fairness, it is not just, you don't have to be just fair to your shareholders, but you have to be fair to all the participants, that is to all or towards all the stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? You have customers, you have suppliers, employees, lenders, government, of course. There are shareholders for sure. Shareholders are the prima facie thing, right? And you can say the society as a whole. Okay. what we are trying to say is there are certain policies which are framed, which are being framed, or which are being created on the principles of transparency, accountability, and fairness, right? I told you that company is a corporate citizen. Company is a corporate citizen and has to be a responsible one. Responsible one. Okay. Now, corporate governance is based on 3 parameters. It is a set of policies created for directing a company based on 3 parameters. What are the 3 parameters? Fairness, accountability, and transparency. When we talk about fairness, you don't just have to be fair to your shareholders, but to all the stakeholders also. If you're not fair to your customers, you will not be able to develop that brand reputation, right? Every time I buy a product, if it is worth it, I will be more loyal towards that particular brand, because I know that this brand is not going to give me any underrated product, right? Not exactly underrated, but any product which is not of that particular quality that I'm expecting, right? So I will be more loyal to that particular brand. So if you be fair to the customers, if you're giving proper disclosure to the customers, even if there is anything that you are unable to provide to the customer, supposedly you wrote something, and because you wrote this, customer bought this, but customer is not satisfied and it actually is not in sync with the contents. So you have to be accountable towards customer also. How? You will take back the goods. You will apologize. So that is a good customer policy that you're having, right? Flipkart. Flipkart is one such company which has an excellent return policy. You buy the product, you don't like it. Many people, what they do, they wear the product, they go out party and they come back and they return the product. Even then Flipkart is willing and is happy to take back your product. Will give you instant refund, right? So that is what is building your confidence in that particular company. You will see, if it is a Flipkart assured product, no problem, I'll buy it. There's no problem. First you place the order, even if you don't like, they will take it back. So that is helping you build up more customers, right? When we are talking about suppliers, if you're fair towards your supplier, if you are transparent towards your supplier, supposedly you have incurred certain loss, you have to be open to your supplier. So it is going to help you get that constant supplies, right? So it is not going to hinder your supplies. When we talk about employees, the employees are the biggest human resource a company can have. So if you are accountable towards your employees, if you're fair towards your employees, it is going to help you retain good employees. So there shouldn't even be any bias in employment of employees also, right? It happens a lot. References in employment happens a lot, right? Somebody will call the boss and say, he is actually my neighbor, please see if something can be done. Okay, no problem, you send him, I will take care. We have a lot of vacancies in our office. So what is happening? The employees are getting a message that our qualifications, our experience don't matter. What matters is the reference or the source, right? So it is not creating a very good image for the company. There are lenders like banks. If you are working in a transparent manner, the banks know that what your financials present, they are the actual figures. You haven't manipulated these figures. When the auditors have signed it, they trust the credibility of those financial statements and they will be willing to extend loan to you, right? When we are talking about government, of course, we have already spoken about government. So, and of course the shareholders. So you will attract more investors. So my dear, what are the benefits of corporate governance? First of all, it helps you build investors' confidence, right? So if you're working in a transparent manner, if you're fair towards your investors, it is going to build up their confidence, as I told you. So when it is going to build up their confidence, they will stick to you, no matter even if the company is suffering from losses, like it happens in bank accounts. What about bank accounts, ma'am? What are you trying to say? See, supposedly there is a government bank which is offering me SB interest rate of 4%, and there's a private bank which is offering me an interest rate of 6%. Where will I invest my money? Okay, some people might be investing in 6% slot because they are willing to take more risk. But if you talk about safety options, I will invest in this particular bank. Why? Because although I might not get more return, but I am sure that my money is safe because I have that confidence in government bank. Likewise, if a company gains investor confidence, investor will be willing to extend money or invest in this particular company even if it is getting less return. So from company's point of view, what the company is getting capital at all times. Whenever a company wants capital, lenders are willing to extend the loan, the investors are willing to purchase the shares, and you also have long-term investors who are not going to go anywhere. They will stick with the company. They will be loyal to the company, right? Plus, they will even be willing to provide money at lower cost. So you will get money at lower cost, right? As it happened in this particular case. So first of all, corporate governance, that is, if you follow the set of policies which are promoting fairness, accountability, transparency, ethical practices. So if you're following ethical practices, like you also have a concept called as CSR. That is corporate social responsibility, wherein company needs to spend a certain percentage of their net profit for a social cause. Supposedly somebody is poor, okay, and you're feeding the poor. So feeding the poor is a social cause that you're doing. You are doing something for the society. Now when you do that, investors gain that confidence in you. Oh wow, he's such a nice person, right? So this company is such a nice corporate citizen. They are working so much for the society. So when they are working so much for the society, the investors will have that confidence in. So when the investors have that confidence in the company, they will stick with the company. Long-term investors. They will provide lower cost of capital. They will give you capital at all times. And when there is a demand for your shares, the share prices will boost. So you will have a positive impact on the share price of the company. There is going to be a positive impact on the share prices of the company. Now, apart from that, since you won't have any problem of finances, you will be financially stable, plus you will grow. Right. See, when I'm talking about Satyam case, as I told you, our example was also inspired from an aspect of that particular Satyam case. Although whenever I talk about Satyam case, now Satyam fraud case, it actually brings a hilarious smile on my face. Reason being, the name of the company. Just look at the name of the company. What is it? Satyam. Satyam is Satyam. What it means? It is truth, right? Satyam means truth, and this particular company was far away from truth, right? It involved all fraudulent practices. It is like maybe Alia Bhatt saying that my name is Brainy. Okay. With no offense to all the fans of Alia Bhatt, I myself am for the artwork that she contributes to the Indian cinema. But the fact is that if you go out and search on Google the dumb actresses of Bollywood, I think probably her name will be the first one, right? So just a comparison to keep up with the momentum. The point here is Satyam, far away from its name, inflated profits like anything. Okay, so what it continuously does, it inflated the profits. Now, when you are inflating the profits, the investors are very happy and they're willing to give you money. Now they're giving you money, you're taking that money, you're inflating profits, and there's a big scam because there are heavy losses and only the profits are being inflated. One fine day, all the independent directors withdrew their hands from the company, and that is when the event sensation was created in the industry. And this fraud came into existence, or actually it did not came into existence, it came into picture, right? But the major question that was raised was for the auditor. In our video example, had it been possible without the auditor to manipulate the account? So the question here arises that the auditors definitely was somewhere involved in this scam. Auditors, PwC is a very reputed company, right? So the auditors have tremendous knowledge. It won't be correct to say that they could not detect that the accounts were being manipulated for so many years. So definitely there was involvement of auditors too. But had there been a policy to keep a check on these auditors or to oversee the functioning of these auditors also, they would not have done. Right? Had there been a policy to continuous check the transparency, the continuous disclosures that need to be followed, maybe we could have protected the scam. See, ultimately loopholes are there in every law, right? So there are still chances of every scam happening, but with every mistake we learn, right? With every mistake we learn. So we'll discuss this. So Satyam company grew like this, but there was a pitfall. But if a company is financially stable, is following corporate governance, it is going to grow at a very good pace, right? And it is going to overpower that particular fraudulent companies, right? So you are going to witness financial stability. You're also going to witness economic growth. There is always going to be availability of capital. With long-term investors, you are going to get lower cost of capital and the share prices are going to boost, right? Definitely, there's going to be a positive impact on the share price. There's going to be a positive impact on the share price. Now, apart from this, you can also say it helps you to develop brand reputation, brand image is enhanced. Brand image is enhanced, right? So these are the benefits of corporate governance. These are the benefits of corporate governance. Clear? Now, this particular corporate governance, I would say it is not an act. It is not an act, but more like a code. It is not even exactly a code, but it compiles of. So it is a compilation of all the relevant set of policies. Like you have certain policies given in Companies Act. You might have certain policies given in some SEBI regulations that company needs to do this. Say for example, company needs to appoint an independent director. An independent director. See, if I take an example, supposedly you have your practicals or you have your viva in board exams. Now, what happens in practical examinations that are going to be held in the school itself, right? But some external authority or some external examiners come and they take your exam. Why? Why can't internal teachers take the exam, board exams? Because the internal teacher is interested in the school results, is interested in the student, and would eventually want that all students, supposedly the total is 30, would want that all the students get 30 out of 30, right? And if there is going to be doubt on integrity, maybe she'll give one or two student 29 out of 30, right? That is the maximum that a teacher will do, internal teacher. But when external teacher comes, she has nothing to do with the school. She has nothing to do with the school results. All that she is going to evaluate is the competency of that particular student. That is why we say that independent sources are going to be more reliable. That is the reason Companies Act introduced the concept of independent directors. This is your company and you have appointed these 4 directors. They are only going to work in the manner you want, because they are all interested in the company. Usually the promoter who founds the company becomes the director of the company also. So he is very much interested in the company. But if you appoint somebody from an external source who has good knowledge, he is definitely going to contribute to the company and he will work in an unbiased manner, which is going to promote transparency in the company. So appointing of independent director is a policy, or you can say is directly corporate governance. So one such policy. Like this, you have a lot of policies. Which also promote. Why are they incorporated in the company? To promote transparency, accountability in the company, right? So I hope this much part is clear now. Now when we come back to our corporate governance chart, we know what corporate governance is. We know why corporate governance is needed. Now we need to know when this corporate governance came into force. Mainly post-liberalization. When our Indian economy opened the doors and to globally and invited foreign companies to invest here, there were liberal policies. So that is the time when actually corporate governance came into force. So mainly, all those slight policies every company has, right? Where is it applicable? Mainly on listed companies. Why? The question here arises, why? Why only on listed companies? See, corporate governance must be followed by all sort of companies, even by the small businessman. But as I told you, government is concerned where public money is involved. If I earn 50,000 rupees, is anyone going to stop me if I go out and buy a mobile phone of 50,000? Except for Rajnikant, right? He can do anything. Nobody can stop me. Why no one can stop me? Because it is my own money. But if I take money from you saying that somebody in the family is unwell and I urgently need money, I'll return it to you tomorrow, and I go out and buy a mobile phone of 50,000, now you will be one. Now I have to be accountable to you that why did I lie and borrowed money and I'm spending it for the purchase of. So now I am accountable. So when it is your own money, you can do anything. Like in case of private companies, it is your own money, you want to spend it, you want to keep it, what you want to do, you can do. You have some compliances under Companies Act, that is all. But when it is a listed companies, that means somewhere it has made public offer and has accepted monies from general public, then it has to be accountable. It cannot just take public money and run away, like these fraud people have done in past, right? So government is getting more cautious. The government is framing strict policies, stringent policies that you must follow so that everything is in transparent and fair manner. Okay, so that is why mainly listed companies. You have unlisted public companies also, but unlisted public companies don't give public offer. They are formed as a public company, but all the shares that they have issued are not through public offer, because any company, if makes a public offer, has to list itself on a recognized stock exchange and it becomes a listed company. So only a company listed on a stock exchange has made public offer. Even if you haven't understood this particular point, don't worry at all. We'll be discussing this in Companies Act later, right? So I hope this much part is clear. Now, how do we do this, ma'am? How are we going to incorporate corporate governance, and where will we get these set of policies which we need to follow? So all these policies are given in the legal framework, not in one act, because there is no such act of corporate governance, but in different laws you have some policies that we have compiled and is known as corporate governance. What is the legal framework? Here is the legal framework. Here is the legal framework. But before that, we have an example. Not exactly an example, but an example. So an example of good corporate governance is a well-defined and enforced structure that works for the benefit of everyone. So there's a company which is working for the benefit of everyone, okay, and is following the ethical standards, all the best practices, all the laws. So this is an example of good corporate. You are following all the set of policies, you're working ethically, you're working for the benefit of all your stakeholders. That means you're practicing good corporate governance. And when it is called as a bad corporate governance, that means you're managing this corporate very badly. Here in this particular case, you're managing the corporate very nicely. Why? Because you're working for the benefit of everyone, you are following those ethical standards, you're following all laws and everything. But when you are non-compliant, you're not following the compliances, you are poorly structured, you're ambiguous, there's ambiguity, that means it is a bad corporate governance and it can severely damage the financial health of a company. It can severely damage the financial health of a company. I hope this much part is clear, right? Okay, so we'll move forward now. Legal framework. You have some policies which are given in Companies Act. You have some policies which are given in SEBI guidelines. You also have SEBI loader for the same. Very important from this particular point of view. You have some policies given in Kumar Mangalam Birla report. Accounting standards, listing agreements. One by one, we are going to analyze all these. One by one, we are going to analyze all these. The very first one, Companies Act 2013. Companies Act 2013. Now, before I tell you this particular point, listen to me. Supposedly, I have formed a company. That means who is the promoter of the company? It's me, Shivangi. I hold 30% shares. I hold 30% shares in the company and rest are issued to public. Rest are issued to public. That means what can I use? Say is promoters shareholding is 30% and others or public is 70%. Others or public is 70%. Right? This you can say. Now, supposedly, if at my place, it can be anyone. It can be Ambani's also. Ambani's also, they have the promoter's shareholding. That means maybe his family members, they have founded the company. So they have certain shareholding. They have 44% shareholding in a particular group, or maybe 40% shareholding in a particular company. Now what was going to happen is, maybe if they want to control the company their way, which might be unfair to other shareholders or which might be unfair to somebody else, So what Companies Act did is it involved the participation of shareholders. It said it is not just the directors. I have formed the company, I have 30% shareholding, and I'm also the director of the company. So it is not everything that I can decide. I want to start a new business with their money. Can I? I want to give away dividend to everyone. I've earned huge profits. I want to give away all the dividend. Can I? No. That is alone I cannot. So as a director, I don't have all the powers to run a company. There is participation of shareholders in many cases. That is, there is involvement of shareholders also. So shareholders are involved. Shareholders actually help us in making decision. Supposedly, if I want to declare dividend, how the process of declaration of dividend is, if I want to declare dividend, what I have to do is, after passing a board resolution, I have to take permission from 51% shareholders. That is majority of my shareholders. Supposedly, if there are 100 shareholders in my company, at least 51 shareholders. I have only 30% stake. The rest 70% is in the hands of general public, right? And they have full involvement here. Even if I want to declare dividend, alone 30% vote is not going to help. I need their vote also. So this is what? This is a step towards corporate governance, right? So if you're following this, if you're involving all the shareholders, this is something that you need to follow. It is mandatory. You cannot declare dividend without passing an ordinary resolution. If I talk about Companies Act, there are 4 ordinary business of a company. These ordinary businesses are performed every year at an annual general meeting. Declaration of dividend, appointment of directors, appointment of auditors, as well as adoption of financial statements. So these 4 are ordinary business and it requires ordinary resolution. That is simple majority. But shareholders have to participate. Only the promoter or only the director cannot do anything. So they do not have all powers. Just because they might not be fair to the stakeholders, involvement of shareholders has been made mandatory. And not just this, in majority of the cases, you need special resolution. Supposedly, I have bribed some of my other shareholders also, and I managed to get 23 more votes amounting to 53%. So I'll be able to manage ordinary resolution, but still, majority of the items require special resolution. That means they need 75% majority to actually come in place, which is not possible alone by the promoter or by the, you can say, directors. So the dominance of the promoter shareholding is being curbed, right? So all the shareholders are now required. Okay, so that is one such step. You also have a case of operation and mismanagement. Operation and mismanagement. The company is being mismanaged, or the minority shareholders, I'll repeat once again, the minority shareholders have been oppressed. See, what happens is the one who is in power has also the power to suppress or oppress the ones who do not have the power. Rich dominates the poor. Like powerful dominates the not so powerful person. Likewise, when there are shareholders who have a lot of power, like somebody like me who's holding 30% shares in a company has a beautiful say in the company, but someone holding 0.5% or 0.0001% shares, he does not have any say in the company. So even if they are dominating the will of these particular shareholders, they cannot do anything. But There's a chapter under Companies Act 2013 which has given power to these minority shareholders who are holding at least 10%. Supposedly, I have 1% shareholding, and you have 5% shareholding, and somebody else has 5% shareholding. So total we become 11% shareholding holders. So we can claim a relief to the concerned authority. We can say that we have been oppressed by these majority shareholders. Please help us. So they are going to help. How it happens, what are the provisions, what are the cases, everything we'll study in Companies Act. Okay. But they have a provision. That means they are taking step towards corporate. These are what? These are all the policies. Why these policies are being framed? They have nothing to do with the operations of the company. The company can go on without even giving the minority shareholders a right. But why are they being given? For equitable treatment of shareholders, for being fair to all the shares, even if you have so many shares or you have less shares, right? So this policy is being framed for being fair. Okay, so a lot of policies are framed for working in a transparent manner. A lot of policies are being framed for creating accountability, and you also have a lot of policies which are being framed for promoting fairness in all the dealings, keeping in mind the 3 parameters and keeping in mind all the stakeholders of the company, that is all the ones who are participating in, right, or the company is interacting with. Okay, so I hope this much part is clear to all of you. Now in the next class, we are going to start with SEBI regulations. Okay, so far if I discuss or if I sum up what have we studied in the corporate governance chapter, we know what corporate governance is. If I ask you a direct question, what do you mean by corporate governance? What are you going to tell me? Ma'am, it is a set of policies, which directs the company on the principles of, or you can say the set of policies which are created for directing a company on the principles of fat and ethical practices. Why is it needed? Need or benefits? Why is it needed, or what are the benefits? It helps to establish financial stability. It is definitely going to ensure success and economic growth. Then you are going to get all the capital as and when needed. It helps to build investors' confidence, which in turn helps to retain the investor for a longer term. It is going to lower the cost of capital. Then it is also going to eradicate, you can say, corruption, mismanagement and everything. Then it is going to lead to higher share prices. It is going to build up a brand image. Okay. There can be a direct question asked to you, what is the legal framework of corporate structure, corporate governance? So what are you going to answer? All these points. Now, depending upon the marks or the weightage that this particular question carries, supposedly it is being asked legal framework and the question is of 5 marks. So all these points, of course, and you also have to write this, but not completely. In short, you are going to write briefly, you are going to sum up these things and you are going to write, say, 3 lines for each point. Okay. So writing skills, we'll definitely work on that. But as of now, I'm ending today's class. We still have to discuss this legal framework. It is not done yet, but we have discussed Companies Act. Okay. Although this again we are going to discuss at a later point of this particular chapter. I told you this is not it. Only these 2 points are not the policies that are given in Companies Act. One such example I'll share with you is electronic voting. I told you about independent directors. One such point is electronic voting also. See, I hold the shares of Reliance. If the annual general meeting of Reliance is being conducted, I told you If Reliance wants to declare dividend, it needs to ask all its shareholders, and if majority of the shareholders agree, then only dividend will be declared. But majority of the shareholders won't attend the meeting because they're so far away. I won't go on all my expenses to attend an annual general meet, but I do want to vote. So that is why the concept of electronic voting has been introduced, so that I can sit back at my home and just by clicking, I can vote. I can vote. So here my participation is being enhanced. Earlier there was only a provision of participation, but now this participation is actually being executed by introducing electronic voting, right? So these are not just the points or the only points you can say in corporate governance. You have a lot of other points. CSR also comes under Companies Act, that is corporate social responsibility, and slowly we are going to discover what we need to. Okay, but this was just a few examples. That is how it has been done. These are the major things or major points. And we end our class here itself. So SEBI regulations we will be doing in our next class. Hope you enjoyed the class. Thank you.